Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of ATL Prime Sports, coming to you live from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm Todd Corder, along with Wayne in Memphis, who's running this show tonight, and JJ, who's on the other side of the ATL. And guys, it's another Atlanta Falcons debacle. We'll get into it in a minute. We'll also get into our weekly Georgia State report, our Panther report, with Dave Cohen, the voice of the Georgia State Panthers. We'll also discuss Georgia Tech's heartbreaking loss to Central Florida. And Georgia, your dogs, JJ, they open the Southeastern Conference regular season and their first game of the season, which seems weird to say, coming at the end of September, at Arkansas this Saturday. Georgia is a big, big favorite. Welcome to the show, guys. And before I officially let you come in, how about them Cowboys?
I tell you.
Hey, TC, you want the ball of hosting tonight?
No, I'm going to pass it back to you.
No.
Hey,
Wait,
I don't want the
listen,
ball. You want the ball?
I'm afraid to touch the ball. I don't know what to do with this ball.
Well, I'll go ahead. The Cowboys guy will go ahead and take it. Oh, that's what they did. That's what they did on Sunday. They grabbed the ball. I'm sorry, fellas.
Well, listen, they did that onside kick perfect, but I feel like that's not the reason the game was won by the Cowboys, though. They won that game by scoring those two touchdowns before that onside kick.
That's correct. That's an excellent point. Wayne, our producer in Memphis, I agree with you 100%. Follow the show on Instagram and Twitter. You can get the show at ATL Prime Sports. You can get myself at Corder Todd. You can get JJ at JJ Get You One. And Wayne, I don't have his memorized by heart yet, so it's RWY Jr.
That's right.
And that's where you guys can reach us on Twitter. So, guys, let's dive right into the Falcons. Let's dive into this historic debacle. I'll start it off just by saying there are 4 leagues in Falcons history of 21 points or more. The first one was on November 23rd, 2003 against Tennessee. They're up by 21. It was 38-31. The next one was against the Detroit Lions on October 26, 2014. They were up 21. They're actually up 21-0 at halftime, and the Lions scored 22 points in the second half. The third one on February 5th, the Super Bowl 2017. Falcons were up 28-3. We all know the final score, 38-34. And then the Cowboys on Sunday, you can't make it up 20-0, up 15 with 8 minutes to play, and lost 40-39. JJ, you're in a lot of pain, man. I'll let you go.
Well, I had to button the top button this evening because this is a business talk. We're 0-2. As a fan speaking, you're questioning every move. I mean, like we saw, and I'm sure Wayne our producer will pull up the graphic. Social distancing at its finest in a football game on the offsides kick. But Wayne mentioned it perfectly. The 2 touchdowns prior. Where do I begin? 570 yards of offense the Cowboys had. The Falcons given up 953 total yards on the season, darn near 100,000. Seems like 100,000. Darn near 1,000 yards on the season. The real stat here, folks, is 441 games have been played like the Falcons played on Sunday afternoon. 1 team has lost. That was the most recent game. And that means that game had the offense scored at least 39 points. There was no turnovers, and they had a lead in the second half. Well, guess what, folks? 440-1 is now the record. Defense is terrible. Don't even get me started on it. I guess the one bright spot is our first-round draft pick, A.J. Terrell, did very well. He shut down that side of the field. But you're leading 36-24. I know our producer Wayne's probably going to pull up this graphic too. At the 8:08 mark in the fourth quarter, ESPN stats and information had the Falcons at a 99.3% chance of winning the game, and they lost. They were by 12 points with the ball, and at 2nd and 6 in that situation. At that very moment, they had just gained 4 yards. They ended up passing on the next play, stopping the clock. This is when you give the ball to Todd Gurley. 21 carries needs to turn into 25, 26, 27, whatever it takes. Do not put a pitch count on a running back if you can't get to the end of the season.
JJ, does it remind you of the Super Bowl when they should have been running the football instead of passing at the end of the game? There's a lot of similarities there.
Eerily similar. You get the first down with Julio Jones in the Super Bowl, and this one Julio Jones drops the touchdown pass too. So I mean, there's very eerily similar feelings from this game in the Super Bowl. And to me, as a Falcons fan, this one hurts. I mean, more because it's recent. It's right now, and we're still talking about this. I mean, these are historical debacles, folks. This isn't like, oh, well, you know, this, that, this. And no, these are historical fallouts and unbelievable. And to me, it all falls back on the coaching staff, folks. It all falls back on the coaching staff from top to bottom. This staff needs to be reshuffled if they get to 0-3. I don't think you can rebound from that. Maybe you can when the playoffs are expanded, but that's going to be very tough. But I think if this team keeps losing, if it gets to 0-3, 0-4, things have to be reshuffled.
Yeah, the Dallas Cowboys, they said they got on that onside kick like a hot Whataburger with bacon and cheese. Because, you know, those Whataburgers are out there in Texas.
Right there.
Right. You know, and here's some great – we have to give Dallas some credit this game. I mean, yes, the Falcons blew it. But Dak Prescott, I mean, is 22nd rushing touchdown of his career. It's most by a Cowboys quarterback. And most rushing touchdowns by any NFL quarterback from 2016 to 2020. Dak Prescott, he surpassed the 300-yard passing mark for the first time this season, 13th in his career, and he tied Troy Aikman doing so. And you know, for the most, you know, games in team history. And then, of course, with a Greg Zuerlein field goal, the Cowboys tied for the second most points overcome, 20. In a single game in team history. And then Prescott topped 400 passing yards. He tied Tony Romo 5 for the most career 400-yard games in Cowboys quarterback history. And he also became the first quarterback to rush for 3 touchdowns in a game in league history, and also the 14th NFL quarterback to rush for 3 TDs in a single game, and the first since Russell Wilson did in 2012. I mean, the records that Dallas set were phenomenal, even though, you know, they got down 20-0, 29-10 at the half, and down by, you know, we already said how much with 8 minutes to play. They were down by 15, and they still won it. And that was despite trying 2 fake punts, didn't get it, turned the ball over. I mean, they turned
3
the ball
times
over
in the first quarter.
Thank you. And let's on a positive note for the Falcons. You really got to dig to find one. But Matt Ryan had 4 touchdown passes, and he played one whale of a game.
Yeah.
Well, that's 2. That's 2 whale of a games he's played in a row with 0 results. That's 2 great games with statistically no turnovers. Now, they did have one on a 4th down last week on a fake punt. So I don't know. I don't know what more Matt Ryan can do for this franchise. It's unbelievable, the turnaround in that game. And you just felt it slip away. Honestly, to me, when it was 29-10 and right out the second half, Dallas goes down and scores, I go, uh-oh.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, no, you can ask me. I go. This is now a game.
You know,
resilience. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say that.
I go. If you hold them to a field goal, anything there, Wayne. What were your thoughts? I mean, your thoughts as a fan.
Well, you know, anytime I think about defense, I always think of a player, Mike Singletary, and he was the team captain on the Bears defense, and I really think that that's another person that needs to be, you know, have a look at, you know, the team captain for the defense on Atlanta, because I really think him as much as maybe the coaching staff, because he's the guy that's supposed to be making the changes, calling out plays, and everything else for the defense to adjust to. And I just don't think they adjusted to it in the second half.
And one more Prescott fact: he's the first quarterback in NFL history to rush for 400 yards and pass for 400 yards and rush for 3 touchdowns in a single game in NFL history. Guys, that's phenomenal, and you got to give Dak Prescott a lot of credit because he's been under a lot of heat in Dallas. I mean, for them to win this ball game, it was basically a miracle, and it was Mike McCarthy's home debut. So what a way for him to come in. The last game he coached over there, he coached Green Bay to it wasn't his last game, but one of the games, his best game at Green Bay, coached him to a Super Bowl over there against Pittsburgh and won in that same building.
I mean, I know we're giving credit to the Cowboys here, but let's face it, that was debacle. That was not the better team did not win the game.
Right, the Falcons.
The Falcons blew them out in just about every statistical category except for yards. They
beat
them
final
because
score.
They had short fields and the final score. You're exactly right. They beat them in time of possession, turnovers, penalties, I believe.
Nobody cares, though.
But exactly. So you look at that moving forward. That's just unfathomable. I can't. The Falcons gave up 33 first downs to the Dallas Cowboys. That's 2 games worth of first downs, folks.
Yep. It could be 3 if you had a really good defense, but they don't have a really good defense. Let's talk about the fallout, because with Dave Cohen here, the voice of the Georgia State Panthers, will be joining us in a moment. Let's talk about the fallout. 0-2, the pressure on Dan Quinn now is immense. It just dialed up immensely, like I just said. So, now they're going to go to – now they have to play the Bears at home. The Bears are 2-0. They don't look that great. They beat Detroit and the Giants, and they barely won each game. And Andre Swift, the former Georgia Bulldog, had caught the pass. They would be 1-1. They barely beat the Giants. Guys, I think this is a winnable game despite the records on Sunday. I think the Falcons, despite their defense and their record and the yards they've given up, I still think they can move the ball in this Bears defense enough to win the game.
Yeah. No,
I do too.
I'm always going to be pulling for the Falcons regardless.
I mean, Vegas will have them as early favorites, I'm sure. I haven't looked at the line yet, but absolutely, that's a game that you feel like the Atlanta Falcons can bounce back. But if they don't have this game, big problems with Dan Quinn and that coaching staff.
Yeah.
They go 0-3. You think there's rumblings this week? Wait till next week. It'll only get worse by the week.
I'm just saying there's rumbling this week. I think 0-2 is fine, especially with the expanded playoffs. You get to 1-2, you can right the ship at 2-2. It's pretty simple. But you get to 0-3, you're talking about a 3-game winning streak with 13 to play. So
your chances of making the playoffs, JJ, are slim and none at 0-3.
Almost none.
Just think about it.
Maybe one team.
You know what? In the last 9 seasons, the Falcons, 2 of the last 3 incidents, teams leading by 15 points with less than 8 minutes to play in the fourth quarter, the Falcons have them. So, I mean, you name it, they've been up by 15 in the past 9 seasons. Once again, there have been 3 games where teams have been up 15 points and lost with 8 minutes to play, and the Falcons have 2 of them.
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. Poor Dan Quinn. I mean, he thought he's got another nightmare on his hands.
Well, Dan Quinn ought to be glad he's not a coach in the SEC, because they would not stand for that.
Well, they're not going to stand for it in the NFL. It stands for not for long. So, I mean, think about it. I mean, what's buying Dan Quinn time is the Super Bowl appearance and 2 playoff appearances. You know how it is. If you win early, you buy yourself time. Yeah. And that's kind of what he's done. And this is his. I don't think he makes it. I don't think he makes it through to next year if they don't get to the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, just getting to the playoffs isn't going to do it for this team. I think he's going to have to make a run in the playoffs, win a game or 2, especially with the new format. Just getting to the playoffs won't be enough, in my opinion. As a fan, as a sports broadcaster, as a podcaster, listeners, tell us what you think at ATL Prime Sports. Give us your thoughts. Let us know what you think what the Falcons should do with Dan Quinn and the coaching staff if they go 0-3.
Well, it's a great question, but as we're waiting for Dave Cohen to come on here, the voice of the Georgia State Panthers, let's talk about that, because to me, you're going 0-3. You still can't fire the coaching staff. I mean, you've got at least. I'm not a big favor of firing coaches in the middle of the season. I'm just not. I know it gets you the quote-unquote head start to look for another coach, but I don't even think it gives you a head start to look for another coach. I do not. I think you can still look for another coach while the same coach is there, knowing you're going to let him go, but at least let him finish the season. That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah.
I don't know. The new age is so weird. People are so win right now with the talent you have. And honestly, especially in this city with Atlanta United, you have that mentality. Atlanta United came in, went to the championship, lost second year, won it. Third year, lost in the championship, and then they had a bad year this year. So are having a down season, I should say, this season. So that mentality is spread. Why can't the Falcons win now with Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Todd Gurley? That's how fans see it. So 0-3 to me. What loyalty do you show a coach when you're under 500 since the Super Bowl? As an owner, I've given you everything. Arthur Blank's given you the quarterback. He's given you the receiver. Calvin Ridley even gave you a tight end. He gave you another pass rusher in Fowler. Then you have Takk McKinley, who's supposedly ready to go now because he has a defensive end that can rush with him. These are all questions that are valid. At 0-3, what are you doing? I mean, literally, if all this talent is there, what are you doing with it?
Somebody's going to get called to the carpet for it, that's for sure.
There's no question about it. I mean, the defense is supposed to be Dan Quinn's specialty, and unfortunately for him, that's the part of the team that's killing him the most. I mean, the special teams overall are well, they were pretty good until the I got it, no, you take it situation with the onside kick with a game on the line. I just couldn't believe they looked at the football and didn't pick it up. I mean, It was moving so slowly at the time, even though I had not reached 10 yards, you could have dove on it. But then again, if you don't get it, then you have a major risk of Dallas getting it. But you got to be aware of where you are.
You got to jump on that ball.
You got to know where that 10-yard marker is.
As a former player, as a former special teamer on the onside kick return team, on the hands team, they call it. You jump on that football. You don't let that ball go 10 yards in that situation because anything can happen. Because once it went 10 yards, the Falcons were out of position. They were hovering around it. It's like, and again, I think it goes back to coaching. It's like and a lot of people agree with me. It looks like they didn't know the rule. It looks like they didn't go attack the ball because that ball was just. It wasn't anything special. Now,
by the time the Dallas player picked it up, it had gone 11 or 12 yards.
Absolutely.
I think not only Atlanta lost track of the yardage, I think Dallas did momentarily too. So
that's not an excuse to me.
No, not at all.
In week one, Younghoe Koo, the Falcons kicker, in a meaningless situation, perfected an onside kick and got it. And the Falcons scored again against Seattle because of it. That was a serious onside kick attempt. There was a bounce there. You couldn't really field it on time, and the Falcons got it. This was just a little spinner that Zerloin put out there, and anybody could have gotten. So to me, that's a coaching lapse. Again, a friend of mine brought it to my attention today. They called a timeout before
that happened. Right. So and what were they discussing in the huddle is what I would like to know.
Well, they're obviously discussing if 15% could save them 15% or more on car insurance because obviously nobody's talking about, hey, well, if this is a little squibbler, let's attack it. All they saw, I mean, you got to realize the kicker didn't have a tee. The kicker had no tee whatsoever. He just had the ball sandwiched, for lack of a better term, out there and spun it like a top.
You know,
gotta
when
get
we're
on that
talking
football.
about special teams, why isn't a guy like Julio Jones on the field for your special teams in that
It's
instance?
another good question. That's a special. I have no clue.
I don't know.
That-
Well,
to
let's
me, that-
while
to
we're
me, that
waiting for
reflects
Dave
on the
Cohen to
coaching.
come on. Well, look, the coaches can't go pick it up for them. They can't sit
Correct.
there and have. I mean, they were in position to get the ball. So I think it's way more about the players than it is the coaching at that point. If they were out of position, then you could definitely say something about the coaching. But it was simply the players did not pick up the ball or aware where they were when the ball had gone 10 yards down the field. As we wait for Dave Cohen to come on, the voice of the Panthers, let's talk about another local team that took another loss. That would be Georgia Tech versus Central Florida on Saturday. Georgia Tech, to me, guys, is a team. They're a ways away from being a major contender. They are slightly below mediocre. They had a valiant effort against Florida State. They were in this ball game at 28-21 in the fourth quarter, but it didn't feel like to me they were in the ball game at all. And, you know, Tech is a young team, especially offensively, especially with Jeff Sims, the kid at quarterback. And, you know, and Tech, the bottom line is they failed to capitalize offensively in this game. They got 0 points in deep drives in UCF territory. And that was one of the major differences in this contest.
Yeah. Well, they've got a week off to think about it. They got a week off to think about it.
No, they don't. Tech plays Syracuse this Saturday, right?
Tech.
Tech plays Syracuse this Saturday.
I've got Syracuse at Pittsburgh.
Is it this Saturday?
That was last week.
That was last week.
Yeah, Syracuse played Pittsburgh. They got beat 21-10.
Okay.
And Pittsburgh's a ranked team.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
no, they play Syracuse this Saturday.
Yeah, I was looking at the wrong
Saturday.
Hey, guys, you know what? This is
in the Courier, or the big dome up there.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the fourth time ever that Syracuse and Georgia Tech have met. The last time was in 2013 when Georgia Tech beat them 56-0.
Oh.
So, you know, Georgia
Payback.
Tech is favored by 7 this game. And, you know, they can't fumble the football no matter who they play. Because if you're fumbling the football deep in opponent's territory, no matter who the opponent is, and you've got a young freshman, a quarterback, you're not beating anybody.
Well.
So protecting the football is the key.
Protecting the football is key. You got to get your kicker under control. And another block kick against Central Florida that cost points early in the game, maybe changes the tide of things. They have got to get their special teams under control. They had a kicker that was like a 5-star recruit kicker. I mean, he was all world supposedly coming in. This guy could kick a field goal from the heavens. Well, he gets there. He's trying to kick him too short. You can't kick it over, big guys that are coming at you. So that's a problem you got to fix. You mentioned the turnovers. Jeff Sims, 2 games, 4 turnovers.
Right,
you can't have that winning game.
All right, gentlemen, let's go. We'll go ahead and go back to Georgia Tech shortly. Let's bring on the voice of the Georgia State Panthers, Dave Cohen. Dave, how are you this evening?
I'm pretty good. Sorry I'm a little late, but better late than never.
Exactly. That's not a problem at all, Dave. We appreciate you coming on as ever. And I tell you what, tough loss on Saturday, Louisiana, 34-31. Really solid Sun Belt teams, if you ask me. And despite the loss, Cornelius Brown, the freshman, he showed a lot of promise. He did throw for 196 and a touchdown, and he ran the offense pretty well for Georgia State.
Well, not only Cornelius, but don't forget Destin Coates. He ran the ball pretty well, a career-high 150 yards. And, you know, that was the second big question mark, who was going to pick up the bulk of the load on the ground with the loss of Trey Barnett. So, I was worried, as I told you guys last week, going into this game at the quarterback spot, just because no matter who had won the job for the regular season, it was going to be a lot of inexperience at that position. You know, Cornelius played in 4 games last year, but very, very limited action because he held on to his redshirt season. But I thought the numbers you gave, I thought that he really looked really good. I was pleasantly surprised, and we got off to a good start and played well for most of the ball game on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
That's just a tough team to go into overtime against. And certainly, one of their best players, Elijah Mitchell, scored on that, a 59-yard or 56-yard touchdown run. And then, of course, in overtime, scored the winning touchdown. And, he was the Sun Belt Conference Offensive Player of the Week, as announced earlier today. So, and I think I had him when I voted on the preseason poll. I had him as the number one running back in the Sun Belt Conference. So, not a surprise at all. But that's really, that's the fifth time we've played them in football in the Sun Belt. And that's really the best game that I can remember. Maybe there might have been one game in Lafayette a few years back where we gave them a good run for their money. But that was really the one game out of the five that I felt we had a really, really good shot to finally get a win in the series. But, now you can see, they got off to a little bit of a slow start coming off their Iowa State win. And, you see why they're one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the Sun Belt Conference. But overall, I thought we played really well.
Dave, I think Georgia State should go ahead and schedule Iowa State here in the near future.
Yeah, the problem is by the time you get them on the schedule, they'll probably be back to being really good again. When you schedule those games, 5, 10, 15 years out, as we've been doing,
it's hard to look at.
You never know how it's gonna turn out by the time you get. That's what I've always said about scheduling Georgia Tech in Georgia, as a lot of our fans want to do, is JJ sports that red bulldog hat. I have no problem playing Georgia Tech or Georgia, whether it's in basketball, whether it's in football. But if we're going to schedule it, don't back out if, say, Georgia or Georgia Tech has a down year and we're on the schedule. That's why we haven't played them in basketball all these years since Lefty Driesell was coaching at Georgia State, because we've been pretty good right from Lefty Driesell. We had a couple of down years there. And Kat wants to say hello.
Hey.
Hey, kitty.
But the whole 8 years of Ron Hunter, Georgia Tech wanted no part of Georgia State. We played them the one time in that exhibition benefit, and we beat them over at McCamish Pavilion. But notice, up until this year, now there's a 3-game schedule. But for the most part, they have, avoided scheduling. And I'm trying to remember the last time we played Georgia. Actually, the last time we played Georgia was an unscheduled game. That was the game down in the Cayman Islands 2 years ago when we ran them out of the gymnasium down there. But we have not played them in Atlanta or Athens since Lefty Driesell was coaching at Georgia State. That's been quite a while now.
You're listening to Dave Cohen here on ATL Prime Sports. Dave, good to hear from you. Georgia State was up 21-7 on the Ragin Cajuns and played extremely well, forced 2 turnovers. Coach Elliott's got to feel good feeling going into Charlotte this week. Give us a breakdown of the game this week and really what to expect as Georgia State fans.
Well, from a Charlotte standpoint, there's only one game to go on. That was for them a loss at Appalachian State in game 1. Right. They had COVID-19 problems and canceled their game this past Saturday that was scheduled against North Carolina. So, like our situation with the loss of the Murray State and the game at Alabama, they only have one game to go on as well. But for Georgia State, as far as I know, I was at practice this morning down at the stadium. I have not heard of any injury coming out of the game on Saturday against Louisiana. So from that standpoint, that's good. They're as close to being at full strength as you can possibly be. Game is at Charlotte, so it's going to be Georgia State's first road game. But I don't think Coach Elliott takes any moral victories, but at the end of the day, I think he feels, pretty good about the way this team played, coming through what they've come through, as every college team has come through, battling the limited practice time due to COVID during the offseason, and then obviously missed games. So I think going into Charlotte, they feel about as good as they can possibly feel. If the fact that it's on the road, I don't think is a big deal. We beat Charlotte in Charlotte a couple years ago when we were there. So I think everybody feels pretty good about it, to be honest with you.
Well, I'll tell you what, you got to feel pretty good about the play of Ragin Cajuns. He impressed me on Saturday, Dave. That's a guy that you can get the football to, and he can make things happen.
Well, he's a go-to guy. He's our number one tight end, and actually – as I said, if you look at all of our positions, we're solid at just about every position now. And I would say, somewhat solid at quarterback after watching just the one game.
Sure.
But, it's not even just Roger Carter. Roger's now been here for a few years. But you got Aubrey Payne, the Western Carolina transfer, right behind him. He had 13 catches last year, 6 of them for touchdowns. So, we've got kind of a Batman and Robin situation at tight end with those two, with Carter and Payne. But, yeah, Roger has been around now for a number of years, knows the system, and, has really found a home at Georgia State and has been playing well. And, we saw that nice touchdown that he had Saturday against Louisiana.
Listen to Dave Cohen here on ATL Prime Sports. We mentioned it earlier. The running attack for Georgia State picked right back up where it left off from last year. What's the key to that? Going forward, what do you see? Is that going to be is it going to be a rushing attack? We're going to be balanced. What's going to be the game plan for Coach Elliott moving forward?
Oh yeah, the first interview I ever did with him the day he was hired over at the student center in the ballroom, he said, because we had always, for the most part, struggled to run the football in the first 7 or 8 years of the program. And he emphatically told me we are going to run the football at Georgia State. And we have, and we've gotten better on the ground each year that he's been here. And the talent has gotten better each year that he has been here. And last year Trey Barnett really kind of rose to the occasion. Had not really done a whole lot statistically, but last year, became what he was, which was the leading rusher in the Sun Belt Conference. Big part of it, as you guys know football, as well as anybody. And it all starts up front. And sure. Georgia State, once again, like last year, the only guy we lost in the offensive line was Hunter Atkinson, and everybody else is back. And there's even the guys that are, in backup roles were here last year, and have been used as plugins where needed and when necessary. So you got a lot of experience up front, as you mentioned. Roger Carter, Aubrey Payne, 2 nice big blocking tight ends.
Really good.
And so Destin Coates has kind of stepped into Trey Barnett's shoes. Destin's out of Tallahassee, Florida. He was the number 2 guy last year. Well, he was the number 2-3 guy last year with Seth Page. And Seth got hurt late last year, has been hurt all offseason. And even though he's been out at practice, he has not been practicing. I have not heard officially one way or the other a date for him to potentially return. But when he comes back, you've got Destin. You got Tucker Gregg, the kid out of Chatsworth who ran the football some on Saturday. And then you saw later in the game, in the second half, you saw number 23, Marcus Carroll. He's a freshman out of Union City, Georgia. Might be the fastest of all the running backs. So I think as long as everybody stays healthy, both on that offensive line and amongst the running back crew, I think we're set up to run the ball very nicely, for this, for the coming season. As we did.
Let's flip the script here. I was going to say, let's flip the script here. Hang on, JJ. Let's flip the script here. They couldn't stop the run, and Elijah Mitchell hurt them for 164, and they ran 240 against Georgia State. That's something that's got to improve if this team's going to be a contender in the Sun Belt.
No question. What have I been telling you guys for for a number of the number of years we've been doing these shows? When we talked about number of points allowed. We scored 31 last year. We allowed 36. It's been a little bit of an Achilles heel with regards to defensively being able to stop the run. But, once again, there's a reason why Louisiana has now won 24 games over the last 2 seasons and the first 2 games this year. And there's a reason why that they've played for the Sun Belt Conference Championship each of the last 2 years against Appalachian State. Because they're a really, really good team. They're a really, really good team. They have their own Batman and Robin. Not to overuse that term, but when you look at their running backs,
it works.
It really works, and they've actually got 3 because they had Chris Smith, number 21, back there periodically. Right. But it's primarily Mitchell and then number 9, Trey Regis. That might be, it's not might. That is one of the best tandems / 3-man groups of running backs in the Sun Belt. I said,
and one of the better ones in the country. They had 419 yards offense to Georgia State. So now if they can just shore up the defense, which gave up 519, this team's got a shot, Dave, to make some serious noise in the Sun Belt.
Yeah. You talking Georgia State or you talking Louisiana?
Yeah, well, I think Georgia State has a chance to make some serious noise because they had 419 yards offense. Unfortunately, they gave up 519, and they weren't able to hold on. But this is a team that can make make some noise in the Sun Belt. Obviously, now they've got to hope for Louisiana to lose twice and in order to overtake them. So
what have I said? When we've talked, I mean, we're not yet in the upper echelon of the Sun Belt Conference.
Getting there.
But we're serving notice. We're serving notice that it's not going to be too far down the line. We have yet to beat Appalachian State since we've been in the Sun Belt, right, JJ? And we have yet now in 5 tries to beat Louisiana. Right now, that's the cream of the crop. Last year, we finally got Arkansas State. We got Troy. We've beaten Georgia Southern. Historically, in the short amount of time they've been in the league, they've been pretty decent. Yeah. But we're kind of building up to being one of those upper echelon teams in the Sun Belt Conference. And that game on Saturday, if you win that game in overtime or if you win it in regulation, that goes a long way to serve notice across the Sun Belt. People look at that and go, uh-oh.
We're having a totally different conversation if Georgia State wins that game, but unfortunately they fell short. Dave, tell us where we can listen, where we can get the game this week against Charlotte.
Same place, our flagship radio station in Atlanta is 88.5 FM. We're also streaming online at georgiastatesports.com, streaming on the Georgia State Athletics mobile app, and you can also pick us up on TuneIn Radio on your app as well, or tuneinradio.com. So if you're listening on the radio, listening to the streaming audio, it's also nationally televised, so a lot of folks will be watching, but turn the sound down and turn up the radio like I do.
That's what I did with you, Dave. I caught the game on the app, and I saw it on the television. It was a great call. Really appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next Monday at 8:40.
I'll remember next week it's 8:40, not 8:50.
That's all right. Close enough. It's close enough.
All right.
You guys take it easy.
We're doing 8:40 or 8:10?
8:40.
Okay.
8:40. Yep, 8:40 every Monday with Dave Cohen with a Panther Report here on ATL Prime Sports. Take it easy, Dave. Good luck this Saturday.
All right, appreciate it. Guys, you take it easy. We'll talk to you next week.
Right.
Talk to you next week.
Go Panthers.
Go Panthers is correct.
Yep, bye-bye.
Bye. So that's Dave Cohen, the voice of the Georgia State Panthers on ATL Prime Sports with a Panther Report, 8:40 p.m., each and every Monday. And let's go back to the Georgia Tech-Syracuse game. I'll tell you what, Dylan Gabriel at quarterback with 4 touchdowns for, not Syracuse, but Central Florida. He was really impressive.
Yeah, absolutely impressive in that game. Georgia Tech, you thought that defensive line may have been able to keep him in the game, keep Gabriel at bay, but they didn't. They were able to pick him off one time. But 417 yards, 4 touchdowns, 27 of 41. Gabriel played great. He took a back seat in the fourth quarter.
One good aspect for Georgia Tech, they were able to run for 227, but unfortunately Sims was the leading rusher. They can't put that kind of pressure on a quarterback, a freshman, to be able to beat not only direct the offense, be your leading rusher, but to be able to throw it downfield effectively. It's a lot on a freshman. I know they were missing their best ball carrier this week, in Jordan Mason, but and I know they missed one of their best defensive linemen who was out too. Hopefully they'll be available on Saturday. There's no word yet against Syracuse, but man, they got torched. And to me, guys, it felt like they were really, truly never in it, even though it was 28-21 going in the fourth. I just never felt they were in it.
No, not even from the start, which was disappointing to me because I had picked Georgia Tech to win that game.
Did you really?
Well, Wayne,
yeah.
Well,
I gotta hear this. I gotta know. I gotta hear this. Why?
Well, because they were playing at home after coming off of the FSU win, but it really goes to show that FSU is not quite the team that we may have thought they were.
Well, that's true.
That was an impressively bad game on both sides. So the winner on whoever won that game was going to have question marks on both sides of the ball. But the fact is, Georgia Tech's running the football in different ways. You don't want to expose your quarterback to that much contact throughout the Central Florida earlier as Florida State that almost cost them the game. 4 turnovers, like I said, especially 2 interceptions in each game. That's not going to cut it. Got to play better on the defensive line. Again, number 6, I can't think. I'm going to find this guy's name. I can't think of it off the top of my head for defense, but he's just after it on every play. He's a playmaker. Georgia Tech, I think they got bright things coming. TC, you and I mentioned it off air. I think 3 or 4 wins, maybe 5 wins would be a maximum, maybe the ceiling, or in Michael Jordan's terms, the ceiling is the roof at 5 wins for Georgia Tech.
It's an organization that if they get 3 or 4, like if they get 4 wins this season, improve on it and get 5 or 6 the next season, and then they're eligible for a bowl in year 4. I know that's Tech fans don't want to hear that, but that's the reality of the situation at Georgia Tech. I don't see them jumping up. And I know they're getting these top 25 recruiting classes, but you're not going to jump up that fast. I don't see it.
I agree. I think Georgia Tech's going to take some time to build because you have to get the right athlete. You have to get the athlete that can do the student athlete first. Remember, that's an institution of technology, one of the best, finest engineering schools in the land. You have got to come ready to do your schoolwork. So you got to find the right athlete. That takes time. After 3 or 4 years, I think Georgia Tech fans can buy into this program. You're going to have a big win here soon. They had one this year. That Florida State, starting off against Florida State, was a big win for Georgia Tech. I don't care who you are. You're 1-0 in the ACC. You go to Syracuse next week. You put together a win. You're 2-0 in the ACC, and that's something to build off of. So Georgia Tech, again, I think your ceiling may be 5 wins. Who knows? You may upset someone to get to a bowl game a year or 2 earlier than expected, and that can really hype things up, get things going. That's what Georgia Tech needs. They really need.
The kid you're talking about on defense for Georgia Tech is Jerry Brown, the senior. Jerry Howard, Jerry Howard Jr., number 6, the linebacker for Georgia Tech. That's Jerry Howard.
Jerry Howard, thank you.
Yes, that's all right. It's Jerry Howard Jr.
Or Howard. I didn't want to say Hewart, and
it's Jerry Howard Jr.
Howard, but I was thinking Hewart, and that's why I didn't want to say it out loud because I was like,
he's
I don't think I have
a player.
I
mean, he moves side to side, see ball, get ball. I mean, that's the type of player he is, no question about it. All right, guys, we've had not one. Well, we've had 2 heartbreaking losses locally and the blowout. Now let's talk to a team that has the chance. Let's talk about the team that has a chance to win the SEC and get to the playoff this season, and that's Georgia. They open up their opening contest against Arkansas. In Arkansas, Arkansas was 2-10 last season. They were 0-8 in conference play the last 2 years. They gave up almost 37 points a game last season. This will be Sam Pittman's first game in Fayetteville versus his former boss, Kirby Smart, who was, as you know, Pittman was the offensive line coach in Athens for the last 4 years. And, this is interesting to me. This contest that interests me the most is I think Georgia needs to keep it simple and look for a lot of Zamir White and James Cook.
You're right. Keep it simple, but also I think Georgia fans want to see a little flashiness from the quarterback. I don't care who it is. He said it's going to keep it locked down. We don't know if it's going to be JT Daniels or DeJuan Mathis, but we all do believe it's going to be one of those two to bring out the Georgia Bulldogs. You mentioned it. They are favorites on the road, big favorites on the road. Right now, on Monday's line, it is 26.5 in favor of the Dogs. There's plenty of reasons why. Recruiting. Those are your main 5 reasons. The Bulldogs are just deeper. They're better right now. But here's some highlights for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Look, they got grad transfer Felipe Frakes from Florida. Looks like he won the job. That was breaking news just a couple hours ago. I mentioned the offensive line, and I asked Dave why they wanted to go forward earlier with that, because you got to run the ball. What can Sam Pittman do? He can coach the offensive line. What do they have? Rakeem Boyd, a senior who can run like the devil. A guy who can run straight through anything. He is the highlight on this Arkansas team. Felipe Frank's a grad transfer. They got a quarterback they can count on. Got SEC play under his belt. Maybe Sam Pittman turns the offensive line around. They get Boyd going, gets his wheels going, and they can keep this thing close. If you're a betting guy, I don't like 26.5 points for this game. I think Sam Pittman's going to have these boys ready to go. I think Georgia will win the game by 17 to 21 points simply because of, again, the depth chart. And I also think the fact of the matter is, let's face it, these boys haven't had a preseason scrimmage except for themselves. They haven't had any, or very rarely have they had padded practices this season. So I think that's going to play a factor into a lot of these big spreads. So keep in mind, you bettors out there. But I do think this will be a much closer game than anticipated simply because of that reason. New coach, Felipe Franks, Rakeem Boyd, and Sam Pittman is an offensive line genius, TC.
Yeah, well, they don't have the players Georgia has, and I like Georgia's defensive line against Arkansas's offensive line. I like Georgia's offensive line against Arkansas's defensive line, and I like Georgia to cover and win the game. And I think Mathis will play quarterback because JT Daniels, he's going to be a game-time decision. He still hasn't been cleared medically to play yet. So, and I think Georgia's going to roll. And it doesn't matter to me. They are better than Arkansas significantly on each side of the ball. And Georgia is only 10-4 all time against Arkansas. But you got to remember, Arkansas wasn't in the SEC many years ago, so they haven't had a lot of meetings under their belt. But I like the Dogs, and I like them big, and I like them to keep it simple. I tell you, what's that, JJ? Talk about that tight end that Georgia's got. They're calling this guy Rob Gronkowski Jr. That's a tongue twister for me today for some reason. Gronkowski, thank you. I don't know why I did that. Gronkowski,
you're talking Darnell Washington, Trey McKitty.
Oh, my gosh. They're loaded, the tight end position.
They're loaded. They're loaded. You could go back all the way to John Fitzpatrick, the redshirt sophomore. Look. This team has always had a pretty good tight end. Blazevich, Isaac Nada, Arthur Lynch, Ben Watson, who's been in the NFL for a long time. They always had pretty good tight ends. The difference is going to be that O-line. You're going to have Trey Hill, Ben Cleveland, Slayer. Schaefer's going to get the start over Clay Webb. And you're going to have Xavier Truss, a redshirt freshman who is very highly touted. Georgia's going to push everybody around. You mentioned the tight ends. They'll probably involve them more with Buster Faulkner and Todd Monken as the offensive coordinators. I don't know if they'll cover simply because I'm just going on the COVID and strictly these guys haven't had a lot of time to gel together as much as they normally would. But
neither is the other team. We're playing on an even field here. I look at the talent on each side of the ball, and I just don't see how Georgia doesn't cover. Arkansas is the worst team in the SEC. I think they get tattooed. The only way I think it stays close is if Georgia turns the ball over left and right. Opening Southeastern Conference game on the road, they're not used to that. But I think you can throw all that stuff out the window. This is pandemic football. This is the way it is. And as long as they run the football, Georgia will be fine and keep it simple. Guys, do you want to go ahead and let's pick some top 25 games this week if you want while we have about a couple of minutes or so. Wayne, let's pick some top 25 teams. Let's do Oklahoma and Kansas State. Oklahoma is favored by 28.5. I'll take the Sooners. How about you, Wayne?
Yeah, I'm taking
to cover.
Yeah.
To cover.
To cover.
Yeah, well, I'm just picking
Spencer
them to win.
Rattler. Yeah, to cover.
I don't think they can cover. I think they'll win, but they won't cover.
What do you got, JJ?
Kansas State had a bad loss against Arkansas State last week. They did not look very strong, but Arkansas State's a pretty good football team in the Sun Belt. 28.5 is a lot in conference play, but
okay.
I'm with you.
Well,
I'm
you
with
guys
you,
write that
TC.
down.
I think I'm with you, CC. I think they cover. I'm going to go
Oh,
with the
yeah,
cover
thank
on
you.
this one.
I know I could get you come around on my side. All
I
right,
think
let's
I'm going to
go
go
with
the cover.
All right, let's go with the Gators and Lane Kiffin's debut. 14.5-point favorite at Ole Miss. I say Florida covers. How about you, Wayne?
I'm saying they definitely cover, and welcome back to the SEC, Lane Kiffin.
What do you got, JJ?
I'm gonna go with the Rebels to cover the spread, and I'll tell you why. Lane Kiffin's gonna have something up his sleeve because remember when he coached at Tennessee, his big thing was trying to beat Florida, and boy, did he do everything he could to keep the game close. Literally at the end of the game, you remember he was running the football with a 3-0 lead, and people are like, "What are you doing? You got to get more first downs. It's just 3-0." He sits there basically, and then Mount Cody, remember, I can't remember his first name, from Alabama, blocked a field goal, and they won the game. And he goes, "I'm sorry, I can't hear it." Rocky Top was playing. So he's in a couple games, did it against Florida, ran the ball against Florida. I think he'll do something crazy, have a couple trick plays up the sleeve. I think they'll cover. I think they'll lose by probably
we got about
14.
4 minutes left. Let's get through these games quicker than that, okay? Let's go Notre Dame and Wake Forest. I've got Notre Dame to cover the 16. How about you, Wayne?
Yes, cover.
What about you?
I'll take the Irish to cover. Wake Forest looks pretty
Kentucky
bad.
and Auburn. 23 versus 6 at Auburn. Auburn's a 10.5-point favorite. War Eagle to cover. Wayne?
Yeah, War Eagle to cover, definitely.
What about you, JJ?
If Joey Gatewood was playing quarterback at Kentucky, I might actually pick Kentucky outright, but I am going to go with Auburn to cover.
Yeah, well, if the Falcons had fallen the football, they would have won against the Cowboys. Next.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yep. UCF against East Carolina, 27-point favorite. I'll take UCF to cover.
Yeah, I'll take that also.
Unites too. All right, let's stay in the. Let's go to the Sun Belt. Louisiana against Georgia Southern, 13.5-point favorite. I've got them to cover.
Yeah, Louisiana to cover.
What about you, JJ?
I think Louisiana, the Ragin Cajuns will rebound. They'll cover. They'll win the game by 14 points.
Here, I think is the most. I think this will be the closest game of the day. Louisville and Pittsburgh. Louisville's ranked 24th. Pitt's 21st. Pitt, a 2.5-point favorite at home. I'll go the Panthers at home to cover. Wayne?
I'm taking Louisville.
I knew you would. Look to win. Mark that down, JJ. Who do you got?
Wow. I'm going to take Pittsburgh to cover and win. I don't know if Louisville's quite there yet. Pittsburgh showed me something last week. Their defense looked pretty good. I think Pittsburgh will get jumped up.
All right, I got about 2 minutes, guys. Texas and Texas Tech. 18-point favorite is Texas. I got them to cover.
I got Texas to win, but not to cover.
Okay, what about you, JJ? Quickly.
I'll take the Red Raiders to cover that 18 too.
All right, Army and Cincinnati. Cincinnati's a 2-touchdown favorite against Army at Cincinnati. I've got Army to cover.
Well, I think that Cincinnati will win, but they'll only win by 10.
I don't even know if they'll win it.
See, TC, what happened to all this Army's going to win 10 games talk?
I just said I
to cover. Cincinnati big. Cincinnati by 21.
You know what? Nobody can stop that option. I like Army's chances to win this game. It'll be very close. I say Army covers, but I'm not sure if they win it. That could be one of their few losses on the schedule.
Yeah.
West Virginia, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State favored by 8.5 at home against West Virginia. Give me Howdy High. I got West Virginia.
Yeah, I'll take West Virginia also.
To cover.
Right,
what about you, JJ? We got to hurry.
Give me the mullet and the Cowboys at home. Boone Pickens.
Yeah, well, the mullet almost laid an egg last week.
Yeah, he was looking forward to West Virginia.
We did Georgia and Arkansas. I have Georgia to cover. Actually, JJ does not. What do you have, Wayne? I'm sorry.
Which game?
26.5, Georgia to cover against Arkansas.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't think they'll cover because I think Arkansas playing at home is going to put them within that pocket, but Georgia will win.
Right. Okay, we got Missouri and Alabama. We got to hurry. I'll say Alabama covers at home by 27. What do you got, Wayne?
Yeah, I definitely think so.
JJ?
Yeah, taking the Crimson Tide.
All right, Texas A&M and Vandy. A&M favored by Vandy by 31 at home. That's a lot of points, but they're playing Vanderbilt, so I'll take A&M.
Yeah, I'll take A&M, but I don't think they're going to win by that much.
I do. Next,
give me the
JJ,
doors.
Hurry.
Give me the doors. Commodores.
Give me the doors. You can have the doors. Don't let the door hit you nowhere. All right, Miami and Florida State. I'll take Miami to cover against Florida State by 11 with ease.
Yeah, easy.
Easy. I think that's probably the easiest pick of the day.
Here's the second hardest pick of the day, in my opinion. Tennessee, 3.5-point favorite at South Carolina. I got Tennessee to cover and win by 4.
Well, I'm picking South Carolina to win by 14.
Whoa, okay. Better
I
write
got
that
the
down.
Gamecocks.
Okay, you got the Gamecocks too? All right.
I got the Gamecocks winning outright at home.
Virginia Tech at home against NC State, a 7-point favorite. I'll take Virginia Tech to cover.
Yeah, Hokies cover.
All right. What about you, JJ? Hurry.
I like Lane Stiffen, Lane Stadium, Blacksburg, Virginia. There, I'm taking the Hokies. Virginia Tech covers.
All right. Last game: Troy in the Sun Belt versus BYU. Number 18 BYU. BYU favored by 14. I say BYU covers.
Yeah, I think they'll cover. If only because that's a long way for Troy to have to travel.
Sure is. What about you, JJ?
Sun Belt shocker. Troy with the upset. I'm calling it.
You've been talking
right
to
here.
Dave Cohen too long.
Shocker.
You know what?
Calling it right here. This is my upset pick of the week, folks. I'm calling it. Troy over BYU by a field goal.
You know what? Mine is Army to beat Cincinnati. You've been on me about it. I got Army to shock the world with that.
There we go.
The option.
There we
I
go.
got it. All right, guys. Speaking of shockers,
sometimes.
as you two Falcon fans know, you know about shockers. So I got to end the show. How about them Cowboys? All right, guys. The Falcons play at Chicago next week. Georgia Tech is at the Falcons are home against Chicago. Georgia Tech goes to Syracuse. Georgia State goes to Charlotte. And Georgia goes to Arkansas. Good luck to all our local teams. We know one thing. The Falcons will make it an adventure one way or another. They are one of the funnest teams to follow in the NFL. That's it, guys. For myself, for Wayne in Memphis, for JJ on the other side of the ATL. Good night, everybody.
All right.
Get you one of these.